Hi, I'm Dave Wood, and this is a bonus Scout-Scott Semiosis 101 video. On the Semiotics for Visual Communicators YouTube channel already, I've posted another weekly video on Peircean pragmatic theory. That video is on Peirce's 10 semiotic signs, but this bonus video gives a sneak peek at how semiosis, the sign action in pragmatic semiotic communication, works in the context of illustration. This is a video from my 2018 conference panel presentation at Confluent 18 in Portugal. At this panel, I presented my paper in 10 minutes to an international audience of illustration academics and professionals, and this panel was chaired by Professor Alan Mayle of Falmouth University. See, I told you I was a design academic and published author. This paper was called Illustrating Semiosis, a Pragmatic Turn to Peircean Semiotic Theory for Illustrators. In it, I used one of my own commercial illustrations to facilitate and to illustrate how Peirce's semiosis is embedded in designing effective visual communications from ideation through to the intended audience's reception. You can visit the conference website to watch the video archive of past illustration and animation speakers and download PDFs of all their papers too. Now, this video of my 10-minute presentation is taken from the fuller Confia video from 2018, so all rights are reserved to Confia for this video. So like this video, this video, and hit the bell button to be notified when next week's Semiosis 101 video is published on this Scout-Scott YouTube channel. But also check out Confia's website too. All the links are in the description below. So here is now my Confia presentation.
Thanks. Okay, now onto the proper slides. Okay, so I'm just going to give you a quick overview of actually how Peirce's semiotic theory works. It's based on a triadic relationship of three parts: the concept that needs to be communicated, how that concept is represented, and the third part, which is the interpretation of what is actually being shown. And it's the basics of actual visual communication as we know it. But as I said, there's two forms of semiotics, so I'm only going to concern the actual Peircean form, which is between what he describes as the object, its representative, and its interpretant, or as I'd rather call it in design-centric terms, the concept, how it's represented, and how it's interpreted. Okay, so it's important to keep an eye on what is called the determination flow. This is how, within anything that we do, to get a message across, we encode it through the visual. We make decisions about how we put together our visuals through drawing, through collage, through all kinds of different ways, through what this is the actual relationship between who's actually our audience, what it is that we need to communicate within our illustration, and then how is that represented in a way that makes sense to our audience who is coming to this relationship from a social cultural perspective, that there's things that they understand within their social cultural group that us as illustrators need to understand. Otherwise, things can get interpreted in different ways depending on people's context. Now, Peirce himself came up with this theory in America of semiotics at the same time as Saussure in Europe. So we're talking about like late 19th century, early 20th century theory. So a lot of the terms he uses in our 21st century world of being designers and illustrators and visual communicators has adapted new terms for the words he uses. And his theory is, when you come to it, very, very complex, because he wasn't writing for us as illustrators, visual communicators. He's writing from a purely logical, theoretical level. So my research, after trying to find how to get my head into what Peircean semiotics is, I've had to translate myself the theory into what I understand from my practice as an illustrator for 10 years, and then my practice as an interaction designer, who thankfully has helped me get into Peircean semiotics, but more importantly, how the language we need to put the language into something that we understand from our practice. So just looking at this slide, you can see that the triadic relationship between the concept, which is the object, how it's represented, the representament, and how it's interpreted, the interpretant, the meaning of this, is couched in all this strange language. That strange language has a very logical, when you get into the actual theory, way of approaching it. Now, Peirce in 1903, 1905, defined 10 forms of semiotic sign, from the basic through to the more sophisticated. And that's what I basically just want to give an overview of today. I'm going to do it by examining through a Peircean theory how the representations that we use within visual communication, through the type of elements we put in our drawings to communicate the meaning of whatever it is we're being commissioned to actually communicate through the illustration, falls within these 10 signs. Now, there's not enough time today, and there's not enough time in the paper to explain all these 10 signs. If anyone is interested afterwards, I can give you a whole appendix from my PhD, which gives you some more examples. I'm just going to focus on 3 forms as part of his triadic relationships. First form is going to be what I've translated as iconic representation. He uses the term icon, has through the internet developed a whole different terminology, expression behind that one word. And iconic, we use iconic all the time, but it means something particular within Peircean semiotics. It's about picking out the object by what resembles the thing we want to communicate. Indexical, if you think about your index finger, it points to something that is existence in the world. And the last one is symbolic, where we agree as a social cultural group the meaning of the imagery that we use. So I'm going to just break these 3 things down as an example through our ideation phase of coming up with a concept we want to actually then translate into the finished illustration, how we can, and we already do, use this theory without actually realizing it. We work from a purely tacit way, most of us, but because I'm a design educator and we're encouraged within the UK to become more research-led in our teaching, it's important that we start to understand theory and apply it to what we already do as tacit knowledge. So I'm going to use an example of an illustration that I did. The illustration is about 20 years old now, but it takes 20 years to learn to see I've already been using it as a practitioner. So I'm going to use this example of a carrier pigeon, and I'll just wait till the next slide changes over. So I'm just going to use this to explain iconic representation. So within Peirce, the very basics of visual communication, even though he doesn't use that term, but visual communication is that we see a resemblance in just a few lines or a bit of colour or whatever that reminds us of something else, a bigger concept. So within this particular illustration, it's composed of a lot of different iconic elements, semiotic elements that help communicate the bigger concept behind the drawing. So we have the bird shape, which is iconically representing a pigeon. The helmet and the goggles, a flyer. The white shapes of the clouds represent, obviously, we're in the sky. The blue background, the blue of the sky. All of these things are iconic elements within Peircean semiotic theory. It doesn't become a semiotic sign until we make that connection of a very basic level that resembles something else. The next step, or the next level, I should say, rather than the next step, because that sounds as procedural, but the next level is then what he terms indexical representation. This is a carrier pigeon. The illustration, it points to existent carrier pigeons. It also points to, in this context, RAF pilots from the Second World War, but also because of the actual stylistic nature. It points to one of the references I used, which is Catch the Pigeon from the Dick Dastardly cartoon from the 1970s. All these things are indexical from the one illustration. Now, the iconic elements nest to form the indexical part of the communication. Because this is an illustration for a big concept, the concept behind this was there was a commission from Wirral Borough Council to get their citizens to communicate more with the council. So they wanted to use it as an example of getting more channels of communication to the council. So the big symbolic idea behind this was the carrier pigeon and all the other forms of illustrated communication all points to symbolic elements of the fact that this is about getting in contact with your council without actually saying directly, give us a ring or email us or whatever. So they wanted a whole set of illustrations commissioned to get across to their citizenship all these different elements of what this is. So just to start to summarize, the whole idea of the triadic nature brings the person, the audience, into the relationship with the illustrator. And Peircean semiotic theory is very good at that. It's a pragmatic theory. It's about meaning being emergent from the elements we see. And one idea sparks off the next idea, sparks off the next idea. Now, because I've had to translate all this myself from the heavy theory, my research angle from now on is to actually bring semioticians together with designers, with illustrators, to bring the discourse, the understanding, the dissemination of this theory into a designer-centric language. So this next year, I'm rolling out, pardon me, I'm rolling out workshops with a semiotician across different design-related organisations and things like that. So I think I'll just end there, and thanks very much.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Dave. That's great. Thank you.
So that was my presentation on illustrating semiosis, a pragmatic turn to Peircean semiotic theory for illustrators. Hope you enjoyed it. At that 2018 conference, I presented 2 papers on 2 different days. The other paper I presented was called What Do You See? Using Graphic Novella to Challenge Stigma. Following this 2018 presentation, I then went on to return to Confia in 2019 and then virtually, thanks to COVID, in 2020 to present other illustration research papers. So if you want to read any of these published illustration research papers or other academic papers on my semiotic Rosetta Stone research, you can find them on my Academia Edu link in the description below. As a fellow creative and a published design author, I also have links in the description to my Scout Scott website, where you can also see the latest weekly Semiosis 101 video, read the Scout Scott blog, browse illustrated and typographical GIF ranges on my Redbubble shop, and buy my 2014 design book published by Bloomsbury Publishing, Interface Design, an Introduction to Visual Communication in UI Design. By subscribing to this Scout Scott YouTube channel, you will learn how semiosis, Peirce's pragmatic semiotic theory, can help to enhance how you visually communicate. I do have other Peircean semiotic topics to discuss on the main weekly Semiosis 101 videos, but I would be interested in hearing about your semiotic thoughts too. So please add a comment below. If you like this video, check out my other weekly semiotic videos too, and consider liking and sharing those videos with others. You see, the more we as creatives come together to discuss semiotics, the easier its application will be. Thanks for watching this bonus Semiosis 101 video. There will be a new weekly 10-minute Semiosis 101 video next week, but check out all the other Scout Scott Semiosis 101 videos, like and share them with your friends too. You can also follow Scout Scott on Instagram and Twitter using the @Scouse_Scott name. And don't forget to hit the bell button to be notified when next week's free Semiosis 101 video is published. So see you all again next week for another 10-minute Semiosis 101 video to help illustrators and designers to enhance your visual communication skills.